With that, we move on to the spotlight talk titled Digital Transformation of Public Services for Effective Governance Through Emerging Technologies. And it's an absolute honor and privilege to welcome and introduce Golok Kumar Simli, Chief Technology Officer, Passport Seva Program, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Mr. Golok Kumar Simli, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Ivan. Let me at the outset also thank Economic Times for having me here. Now, coming back to the topic today, we'll take up about how government department ministries have to digitally transform them so that we can know effectively and efficiently deliver government services at large to the masses and know citizens of our country. Now, coming back to when I look back to holistic digital transformation within the government departments, public sector at large, there are three, four factors which comes to my mind. And the first factor is, the first very important factor is how do we create a digital culture? Now, when I say creating a digital culture that should be imbibed with digital ethics, and to do that, what we have experienced is, most of the time we have seen that the kind of legacy processes, the kind of legacy policies, the kind of legacy compliances we are dealing with, that becomes the kind of a roadblock for us. Now, what I should say, or what I should submit here, saying that when you are planning for a digital culture, when you are planning to create a digital ethics within your department, or let's say ministry, the way forward is, you have to see that, how do you look deep into your policies, how do you look deep into your processes, how do you look deep into your compliances at large. And then many a time you will realize that, it is not about realigning your processes or policies at large, but you have to kind of give a complete cultural rethink, organizational rethink about the holistic way. And many a time we have to also seen that you have to reboot some of your processes. It doesn't work realigning and rethinking alone. Sometimes you have to reboot the complete business case at large, processes at large, no policies at large. Now, while doing so, the another very important factors comes to my mind is, the workforce you have, the organizational culture you have. You need a complete kind of a skilling, reskilling their skill sets. You have to do a lot of capacity building, lot of trainings is required, and then probably you'll realize that over a time, over a period, that organizational culture, that organizational workforce really feel connected to the digital environment or the digital culture now we are creating. And believe me, that is very important to attain. Unless you attain that culture, unless you develop that digital ethics within the organization, the digital transformation really looks tough and really looks difficult. Now, this is the first no, very important factor. I thought I'll brief it here. The second important factor is measuring your workload and knowing your workload well. Now, when you say workload, let me put it here saying that meaning to say that do you really understand your workload well in terms of criticality, in terms of non-criticality, in terms of your data, very important. What kind of data you are dealing with? Is it a sovereign data? Is it a non-sovereign data? Is it a public data? Is it a configurable data? So you must understand the workload well. And once you understand your workload well, then probably you will start planning, designing, executing your digital infrastructure as large, application ecosystem at large. And then we have seen that once you have taken this kind of insightful approach while adapting to digital culture, knowing your workload well, knowing your workforce well, things really become easy when you move forward. One more important point I would like to bring here, saying that while you are dealing with your workload, especially let me give an example of this ongoing pandemic. If I see the ongoing pandemic, the kind of COVID-19 environment we are dealing with, uh, especially what I have realized that most of our workload is shifting towards a remote environment. It's shifting over the internet. Therefore, I must understand what kind of workload I have to deal with, on-premises kind of a data center, what kind of workload I have to deal with, let's say, hybrid kind of a cloud environment. And therefore, it is very important to understand your no workload end to end, and accordingly probably you will categorize your no infrastructure, application, workforce at large, so that you can deal with both kind of workload. Some workload might be access internally on premises kind of a intranet kind of an environment. However, most of the workload, as I said, during this COVID era, we are accessing over the internet, kind of a WFS kind of an environment. So that is a very important, second important point, understanding our workload well, understanding our data well, end-to-end data well. The third very important comes to my mind is when we are segregating this kind of a workload, it also very kind of essential to know that do you really have a data strategy? Do you really have a vibrant data governance model in place? And unless you have a data strategy, unless you have a vibrant data governance model in place, again, believe me, it's very difficult to segregate this kind of a sovereign and non-sovereign kind of a workload, especially in government. If I see ministries, government department, if I see, because their major concern is the kind of data we have, the kind of processes we have, the kind of business case we have. There is always a sovereignty attached to it. And when there is a sovereignty, criticality, confidentiality, fiduciary kind of a nature of workload you are dealing, you must have a data strategy in place. You must have a data governance model in place. Uh, the apart from these two important factor, another very two important factor comes to my mind is, especially for an example, when I was dealing with revamping and kind of a completely overhauling the passport seva ecosystem. What we realized as a ministry at large, or PSP division at large, that the kind of infrastructure, legacy system, legacy ecosystem at large we are having, it was lacking in all sense. All sense means in terms of infrastructure and facilities, in terms of training and capacity building, in terms of business model. Very important. Let me put here 2-3 minutes when I say business model. So what we have realized that no, now we have to innovate new business model, and this new business model is not government alone. No, we must have industry participation. We must have kind of a culture, a kind of a business model which allow us going and thinking beyond out of box. It also allow us to prove a fact that we can work hand in hand with a private industry partner. However, while you are doing so, you have to be also very careful that the sovereign nature of the work, the strategic control remains within the government department. The another beauty of this kind of a innovative business model is in terms of technology. We all realize that technology gets outdated, kind of a 3-4 years of a life cycle, or at the max 5-6 years of a life cycle. Now, if you have to refresh your technology, if you have to kind of adapt this kind of a new and emerging technology, whether we are talking about cloud, we are talking about today analytics, artificial intelligence, all sets of emerging technology. If you are trying to imbibe over the period and during the operationalization phase, it's very important that that technology refresh, that technology upgradation is taken care jointly with a private participation mode. And the another beauty of evolving this kind of a business model is that you make sure that the finance is taken care of, the investment is taken care of, because most of the time what we realize that the project, the program starts with a very big bang approach, but over a period, no, the program or project by itself start diminishing, dying down by itself. So you have to look for a business model which ensures investment over a time, which ensures service quality, service assurance over a time, and it has to be a win-win business model. It has to be win-win in both sense, to the government as well as your private partner. So that is the kind of business model you have to innovate, and we have innovated a business model that we call BOAT model, build, own, and then transfer kind of a business model, where my PPP partner is doing most of the investment. However, beauty of this business model is, no, as I said, it is a win-win scenario for both of us. The service and service quality assurance is taken care of. The service levels are taken care of, and the core is no, I always bring in citizen at the core, saying that the citizens feel connected to this kind of a ecosystem, where citizen really feels that no, the ministry or the department, whatever they are delivering to me, or whatever services they are offering to me, no, I have a say into it, and somebody is listening to me. So that is very important, and especially when technology is changing very fast, especially when technology is getting a kind of a upgraded now and then. So it's no more government alone, I'll say. It has to be a industry participative mode. The last point I would focus here is, no, you have to create a responsive ecosystem. Now, what is that responsive ecosystem? Let me give you an example. When we were launching the Passport Seva program in the year 2000, no, 11, 12, we realized that since we are going a complete digital way, we make it completely online, and then we said that henceforth, every one of you has to file online compulsorily. Now, just imagine what happened to those kind of illiterate masses. A person standing in a corner of a village, or that kind of a digital divide, who are not having computer internet at home. We then realize that no, it's a bigger problem. It's not about making it online or making thing really digital. How do you deal with this kind of a digital divide? How do you deal with this kind of illiterate masses, or let's say village kind of a scenario? And then we realize that how do we take care of this digital divide? And on the process we found that no, that point of time in the year 2012, METI, Ministry of IT, Government of India, were coming up with Common Service Center. And that point of time, as I said, we were having almost 60,000 odd Common Service Center. And then immediately, we integrated with all these Common Service Center, given a kind of a huge kind of a awareness in different languages, vernacular, local languages to our citizens. And then we said that no, now you have a center near your vicinity, near your home, and you don't have to really go to a travel agent or this kind of a kiosk who are misguiding you. And we are charging 100 rupees for filing the application end to end. And citizens, believe me, were really happy that no, the ministry could provide them this kind of a facility at their vicinity, where they are not misguided or where they are not lost. So the idea is whenever we are thinking to create this kind of a effective, governing ecosystem, uh, the idea is how do you gel in, how do you create a synergy, how do you create a convergence between each one of us, each of the government department, and wherever possible, we must leverage the infrastructure or the facilities created by another government department, and ultimately it's the citizens, or ultimately it's the masses at large who are getting benefited out of it. So that is the last point I want to mention. When I also speak about a responsive ecosystem, I would also like to mention here that the responsive ecosystem is not about the ministry or department alone. It has to be kind of a stakeholder ecosystem where every one of your stakeholder who are your dependency, who are your kind of a service provider, and at the core the citizens, everybody must feel connected to your digital ecosystem which you are building. Everybody must feel inclusive to the ecosystem you are building, and everybody also must feel that, and especially the citizens, that hey, there is a government department, there is a ministry who is listening to me, who is really responding on a proactive manner. Today you can simply tweet for your grievance, any such kind of a grievance for a passport related problem, and we'll respond back, and we'll respond back with a kind of a sense of assurance, saying that, oh yes, we have got your grievance and it is being looked into, and once the grievance is resolved, kind of a we'll inform you back. The last point, just I'll take half a minute, saying that while we are again developing this kind of a overall ecosystem, we also must realize that this has to be secure end to end. And when I secure, it has to be 360 degree, it is 24/7, and is a system which is secure in all sense to myself as a ministry, the beneficiaries and masses at large, and stakeholder ecosystem at large. So that's how I put it, and that's how I think we should go ahead creating our digital information ecosystem. Thank you. Thank you so much. So, Ivan, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Golok Kumar Simli. I must tell you that in the short time that you had, just 15 minutes, you gave us a comprehensive overview of how you're using digital transformation to serve the customer effectively through emerging technologies. And I think that was an eye opener. As a consumer, I can tell you that I am absolutely delighted with the Passport Seva program. It is so friendly. And let me also add here, besides digitization and using technology to automate, the softer aspects in terms of your customer facing stuff, they are wonderful. Every single touch point is great. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking time off from your very busy schedule. And we wish you uh, and the Passport Seva program under the aegis of the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, the very best going forward. Thank you so much, sir.
Our pleasure, everyone. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. You stay tuned in, ladies and gentlemen. We will be back on the other side with the CXO's dialogue.